The following program is available in high definition on Channel 700. This program is designed and produced by the community with the support of TV Cogeco.
Hello and welcome to Oakville Matters. This is local television designed to get you in touch with the things that matter to Oakville. One of the things that surely matters to Oakville is the state and condition and the future of the harbors that distinguish Oakville as the beautiful lakeside residential area that it is. With me today to talk about the future of our harbors is Shelley Thornborrow, who's the president of the Bronte Village Residents Association, and their territory embraces the beautiful harbor of Bronte. John MacMullen, who's the past leader of the Association of Oakville Harbor Users, and Karen Brock, who's the leader of OakvilleGreen. And the reason for the timeliness of this show is that the town is presently looking at developing a master plan for our harbors, and under the urging of the Association of Oakville Harbor stakeholders, an effort's being made at a very long-term plan. So not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but if John and his friends have their way, 100 years out, and I have a map that I think would put some context on this. James, if you want to put up the map that shows the 5 different locations where our harbors could be expanded, you can see that when it comes to an ambition to build up harbors, you've got 5 opportunities as a result of some technical studies that have gone on. Nothing is free, so there's 5 numbers on a map don't mean that these will be done. And when you hear about what the cost of one of them would be, you'll quickly appreciate that all 5 of them, surely you'd have to win a hell of a lotto jackpot before you'd ever be able to see all of them. And then James, if you want to come back, I thought the next thing we should do is explain that Karen is she's on point for this, because all of the things that you do on the shore of the lake fall under the jurisdiction of Conservation Halton, which is to say they fall into an area where conservation matters. And I know in one of the submissions that we received during the ongoing public consultation, it was said by someone, oh, and Conservation Halton should definitely be asked to be involved. Well, the news there is they're involved, and maybe it's the other way around. When you go messing with the lake shore or anything that's subject to flooding, you're involved with them. They're not. You don't invite them to be involved with you. You're involved with them. So, Karen, you've raised a bunch of cautions about this, and I'd like to put those on the table, having now sort of taken the 50,000-foot look at, 5 different ways to expand our harbors. Let's hear what reasons there are to be somewhat cautious about this.
Well, I'm not sure I would classify them as cautions, but I think it's important to look at the overall overarching goals, and certainly looking at the policies that the town is creating now. Things like stormwater management. We've got climate change issues. Hurricane Hazel is what started Conservation Halton and all the conservation authorities looking at harbors, looking at creeks, and looking at how to keep people safe and sound, loss of property, loss of life. But I think the overarching goal, I think, is probably the same that all of us have, is that you want access to the not only the creek but the Lake Ontario. That said, you know, active, passive, what's the best way to get people involved? By creating interesting places. How do you do that? I know, even though my family lives in the north of Oakville, for 30 years, we gravitate towards the harbour, and I think that's no different than our ancestors and the founders of Oakville 150 years ago. So natural places, shaded places, places to sit, great opportunity for the town to implement their urban forest canopy goals. We've got to soak up that water where it falls. I understand that where the Oakville Yacht Squadron was at the bottom of Oakville Creek was a wetland. So how do we...
where it is.
Mm-hmm. So, and maybe a garbage dump. But how do we sort of help nature deal with the water that's going there? So I am concerned about these places being car-centric. And if we're looking to the next 50 years, we really have to be innovative, especially environmentally. So how do we get people to the harbour? I think that's the ultimate question without coming by car.
So every time you see a slip, mm-hmm. and you don't see a provided parking spot, you wonder if the plan is really complete or the proposal is really comprehensive.
Well, I think when people go to the harbour, they don't want to be looking at a parking lot. So I think we have to be innovative. I think there are some good innovations. Parking lots like 16 Mile Rec Centre at Neagawa and Dundas have these big, deep swales and trees and wildlife. So rain gardens. So I don't think one is exclusive of the other. So I think it's important to put the environment first. Wildlife. The birds, we know they fly from the south, fly over Lake Ontario and need a place to perch and feed on protein and then continue their journey. So I think there are more than just people considerations for what's happening in these harbours.
Am I hearing you, though, to say that as long as they're environmentally sensitive and they don't cause damage, you don't see a reason to deter the town from exploring increasing the number of slips, building more outer harbours like the Bronte Outer Harbour?
I'm not sure I would say that, because I think there are huge issues in terms of, you know, what are you going to be dumping in the lake? What times are you going to be doing that? How are wildlife going to access the water and ducks and so on? So I'm not against boating, and I have good friends at the Oakville Yacht Squadron, so have taken advantage of some of those facilities for weddings and whatnot. So I just think we have to be so careful about what we are artificially creating. So am I saying I'm fine with it? No, I'm just saying, and maybe this is the time to use caution. And I know John will have something to say with the number of about the number of slips, but I think we have to really seriously look at this. And you're probably aware of the issue in Burlington Bay with the issue of putting up a wave break and the issues that's causing to the wildlife. So
sure, there's a conflict there with the trumpeter swans, right?
Right.
So that's why I was probing with you first to see, are there danger signals here that we need to, are there caution flags flying for the boating enthusiasts? Then I was going to turn to Shelley as the spokesperson for the residents who surround the biggest harbour, and there's quite an interesting expansion idea there. Let's put up, I know this is out of order, but James, let's put up number 5 if you can. And we'll have Shelley tell us how her residents feel about such an expansion. There's number 5, and the idea is that at Shell Park, their proposal is to build a ginormous outer marina, sort of like the outer marina at Bronte. What would the impact on your residents be? Would they be, oh boy, a place to put my boat, or would they be, oh no, something's wrong with that?
Thank you, Mayor Burton, for allowing us to come. And I think that this is a very, very interesting topic, because it poses a lot of change and growth in Oakville, but particularly for Ward 1. From a resident standpoint, when we started looking into the growth review, which preceded the Oakville Harbours Master Plan, we got a lot of input from members. And one of the things that really resonates in terms of value for the area is access to the waterfront, and in us trying to increase that. So I know one of the key directions from yourself and council, and certainly the input from our residents and members, is about increasing that public access to the waterfront. Now, Oakville has 18.5 kilometers of shoreline. Only 48% of that is actually publicly owned. And of that, so then now we're talking about 9 kilometers, and of that, 2.7 kilometers is designated as prime windows to Lake Ontario. It's the beach at Coronation Park, Bronte Beach. There's also a beach east of the Bronte Harbour Club, which isn't as utilized as much, but that is also a very prime spot. There's the Bronte Beach just off the bluffs, and then there's South Shell Park, which we had on just a minute ago. So if we look at these proposals, we are really interested in a very balanced approach to this Master Harbours Plan for all stakeholders. And the stakeholders are boaters, anglers, fishermen, the residents, the clubs, and you know, we were part of the initial sort of rollout where we did a strategizing of who are all the stakeholders, how do we reach them, how do we really make communication a big part of this plan. The biggest issue I have right now is that the public engagement around the study hasn't reached a penetration level that it needs to. The consultants have put some results up on the website, and they've reached 65 members now. When was the last time? I mean, we're going through a census right now, but in 2011 we had 183,000 people in Oakville. So that represents not even 0.5% of the population has been dialed into this process in order to bring ideas and feedback and comments to the table. So I think that this is a huge miss, and I use this very measuredly because we're talking about 0.03% of the population have been part of this process. And I know that they've used different mechanisms to try and reach the public, and they've had a number of interviews with the boaters clubs and associations, with residents associations, community groups, and so on. But clearly we haven't done enough work to bring the public to the table.
So the 65 people from a website, haven't the residents associations, in addition to that, been talked to?
Absolutely, and we have pushed out this message through our membership, through our AGM, which you were recently attended.
And there's, I'm not sure I've got the number correct, but there's 1,200 or 1,300 or 1,400 boaters. There's slips. I mean, have any boaters been consulted?
Directly, I mean, probably as part of the survey effort that the consultant team has taken so far to date, yes, they would have captured a few boaters.
Because we always take your group as speaking for the 12 or 13 or 1,400 boaters.
I was just about to say, as Shelley mentioned, the consultant team did contact and meet with the key stakeholder groups, including the Residents Association, including OakvilleGreen, including the yacht clubs, and as well the Association of Oakville Harbours. I think I echo what Shelley has said. There needs to be more, and there's going to be further surveying during the course of the development of the master plan. There needs to be a better designed survey effort to capture a wider audience.
In the last municipal election, we had, I think, about 33% turnout. Would you like to have a referendum, and if 33% of the population came out, would that be enough?
Well, you know, we can bandy a lot of numbers here, but here's the issue. We have a proposal on the table, which brings 42 to 16. Well, what is this? This is a proposal because it's 42 to 60 million injection for additional of 5 marinas, one of which is an expansion. So, as you rightly said in the beginning, they may not all go ahead. But to go back to the original question as well, if we look at the proposals as they stand. So we had Shell Park up on the monitor. Where the marina is great, but now what it is it's encumbering 2.7 kilometers of shoreline and access to Lake Ontario, and actually inhibiting public access. And if you look at the orange demarked area on the slide there, you'll see that that is now what's called, that's going to be parking area where we would have natural access to the water right now.
So
and if we actually,
look at the parking lot.
yeah, and I'd like to go back. If I'm thinking, if you could put slide number 4 up, which is Bronte West Marina. Right. So if you see where the orange is there, that actually takes away the whole of Bronte Beach, which is to the east of Bronte Bluffs, and that is a prime spot that we've actually provided some input to try and enhance the public access. Right now, we have signs off the QEW that, you know, attracts people to the area. But once you come into the area, the signage isn't really directive and allowing people to come down and let them know we have a great beach here, and allow them to find where it is. And then when you do go to Bronte Harbour, if you're trying to get down to Bronte Beach, there is a sign that says private property. But if you actually go beyond that, there is public parking and there is a public accessible beach. So the signage is confusing, and we really haven't called enough attention to these wonderful facets that we have in this area, that we can bring more people down to the water to enjoy.
Now I know the community. If we put that map back up, the number 4, the area to the left of the green, that community there, I know that community very well. I know a lot of people that live in there, and if there's one thing I'm sure of, it is that if they thought, I mean, I don't know how many boats are they talking about putting in there? Hundreds, right?
430 between the 5.
No, just here. Anyway, the traffic that would go through their neighborhood to get there would cause I mean, there'd be pitchforks and lit torches and marches on City Hall.
I don't think we want to rob Peter to pay Paul either. I know one of the other options at the bottom of the Oakville Harbour is to put it in front of the lakefront park that has the gazebo and air cliffs.
Let's show that
again,
one.
I can't see why that would be a
Let's
possibility.
show number 2.
When
let's show number 2 and number 1 just to get the rest of the context on here. And then we're going to throw it all into John's lap.
It's not against
boaters. Here's the Oakville Harbour in green, and one proposal is put a marina out off of Tannery Park, and a bunch of homes all the way over to the water plant. And then if we go to number 1, you can see this reminds me of doing to Lakefront Park, the green part to the north of the orange. That's Lakefront Park, and or Lakeside Park, and that's sort of recreating the Bronte Outer Harbour in front of Lakeside Park. So these are the notions that are being floated. I want to make sure we understand these are not proposals yet, because nothing's come to council. I think of them as concepts that are being floated to explore public opinion with, and they speak to a long-standing desire of John's group, which is my position has always been, we have whatever number of slips there are. It is unlikely, in my view, it's always been, in my view, unlikely that there's any way to build more, and so they're givens, not subject to change, and use them carefully. And John's group has, for their part, always maintained that the town is growing, and that there's a sense of proportionality that says if we had 1,200 slips when we were 80,000 people, when we're in 2031, when we're 250,000 people, we ought to have 3 times as many as we have now, because what we have now hasn't grown while we've grown. And I think I've very fairly outlined the poles of the argument that we've had for years. So John, now's
my time.
Yes. So I tried to set you
hard
up.
acts to follow.
I tried to set you up so that you had
set up as
environmental concerns on one side, residential access on the other side, and now what do you want?
Okay. Well, where to start? First of all, I mean, it feels a little bit like old home week, because as you know, I used to be on the the board of the Bronte Village Residents Association and OakvilleGreen, and now the Oakville Harbour
So
Stakeholders.
we all know each other well.
We know, yes, very well.
That's why I thought this would be such a good mix.
Yes. I think we need to clarify some things here. I mean, we've tended to focus on an additional marina, and I will come back to that in a second. But before we go on, we're not proposing, nobody is proposing, and as Mayor Burton said, it's a concept right now. Nobody's proposing all 5 marinas. There are 5 optional locations that would need to be investigated. Yes, the price tag would be hefty. Are they going to happen in our, well, the foreseeable future? Who knows? But I think we're losing sight of the fact that the whole exercise is the Oakville Harbours Master Plan. Doing one master plan for the 2 harbors, which are a prime asset, as you yourself, Mayor Burton, acknowledged. It defines, or the waterfront defines, and the harbors define Oakville. It's a master plan for the harbors. One element of that master plan is to look at the possibility, and it wasn't the AOHS that was saying we have to have a new harbor. It was the recreational boating and feasibility capacity study funded by Oakville, Burlington, and Halton Region that said that the region needs 2 to 3 additional harbors.
For years before that, AOHS, I used to live in Sudbury, so forgive my language, but yous and I used to have this debate long before that study was done.
Well, with all due respect, we were never saying there needs to be an additional harbor. What we were saying is that there were 2 master plans that everybody agreed were out of date. We have these prime assets. What are they going to look like 100 years from now? And therefore, we need a master plan with a vision, a strategy, a champion, because no large initiatives such as this are going to happen without a champion or champions. To bring them about. And are they going to happen tomorrow? No, it's going to take a long time. How is the financing going to happen? That's going to be a function of the operating model, private-public partnership. Well,
the best indicator on that, I think, is a lesson from history. When Otto Jelinek was cabinet minister in Ottawa, he was able to arrange for the federal government to participate in creating the Bronte Outer Harbour. And my understanding is that there was, in early 1990 dollars, something like $35 million involved in creating that. The entire thing has been, if you think about the parkland and how the town has dressed it up over the years, I'm sure the total bill has risen from the, just the dredging and the creating of the opportunity. So I would use that number as a kind of a starting point until we see better numbers.
I would double that just for the basic infrastructure costs for a new marina. Agreed. And it has to be self-supporting.
Yeah, and thinking of just one, that's why I said at the start of the show that imagining all 5 is really more than I can do.
But that was never anybody's suggestion that all 5 be built. It's just looking for what's the best option if we were to build a new marina in Oakville. Yeah. It's a pity that really the region's not involved, because we've always said that Oakville's harbors are Halton Region's gateway to Lake Ontario, not just for Oakville residents.
Well, the region very well could be involved, because sometimes the region does get involved in these things, and they were involved in this one, in the Outer Harbour in Bronte. So in the few minutes that we have left, let's pivot around to how it gets paid for. The premise used to be, when I would speak to you in years before about this, that this is an asset that everybody benefits from, and so everybody should pay for it. And I used to annoy you by saying, you boaters can pay for it. So, my favorite Don Henley song has a line in it that says, and change in this life comes very slowly, if it ever comes at all. And I always thought that captured Oakville's spirit. Oakville's very suspicious of change and not eager to embrace change. We've got several minutes left. Make your case for why all of us should pitch in and pay for this.
Well, it depends on what or how you define it. If we're talking of a harbor, strictly the harbor, the moorings, the dredging of the harbour, etc. As you know full well, the boaters do pay for that. But what we're talking about here, the "it" is a wider picture. It's the harbours, it's the adjacent lands, it's the waterfront, it's the public, the green space, the public access.
More interesting
So,
for
and
people.
that is what the master plan should encompass. It's not strictly the harbours and not strictly the boaters.
And I agree,
Does that give you a good lead-in?
Because right now,
Oh, wait, I'm
we
not
have
seeing
key
any new green
directions.
space. I'm seeing new parking space.
Well, this is
We'll
just
have to
it.
have parking.
We don't see a clear vision that's coming, that's emerging from this master plan, and it has to go beyond
Because it
needs
hasn't finished this.
of boaters. Okay, so I don't have any concepts on the table that creates more green space, walkability, bikeability, and public access to the waterfront, which is something residents have been lobbying for a long time now. So we need a little bit more of these concepts on the table, protecting natural landmarks and waterfront. And the green belt proposals right now are all about enhancing green space and protecting natural shorelines as opposed to hardened shorelines. So if we do want a new marina, one or two, we have to be able to balance all of the stakeholder inputs and what the priorities are.
Of course.
And decide, okay, we don't want to take away shoreline for parking. So let's think about this innovatively, as Karen said, and let's figure out how do we create a plan that's shovel-ready but has balance for all of the stakeholders.
How about a marina? First off, I'm not sure that I'm ready to say that I'm in favor of any new marina. I want to get that on the table. But if there's a marina, how about we make it, you can only bike to it.
There's a lot of
I'm only
possibilities.
half joking.
But you see, Mayor Burton, part of the demand from the capacity study, I believe, is inflated because the town is offering moorings at 21% below market prevailing rates, and actually 50% of the slips are offered to non-residents. Might be slightly controversial, but you know, when you consider that part of the costs for the harbors are not self-sustaining and are subsidized, I think it's very important that we have to balance what these priorities are and bring more stakeholders to the table, and certainly not inhibit the public access.
I'd like to interject, and again, it's not all about boats as much as I love the boats, and that's a reason that people go to the harbour, you know, throw rocks in the lake, to sip a coffee, have an ice cream. So I vote for coffee and ice cream, and a beach, and maybe even swimming. That's when I was a kid, you didn't swim in Lake Ontario. So I think there are all those possibilities, but it doesn't have to be a big green space to be a successful green space. So I am opting for, there's a strip along the waterfront in Bronte that is now mostly grass that the Canada geese love. So how can we make that more welcoming, more shady? Have a shade sail. Have a shade sail. But trees are a better bang for your buck down there.
There's a wonderful conversation been had here today on this, and there's a lot more conversation that needs to be had, and we're out of time. but this has been one of the more engaged kind of conversations that we've ever had on this show. This is one of the more engaged conversations that this town should have over the next year or two. Having public access to the waterfront is a touchstone of Oakville's culture. Mayor Harry Barrett, back in the 70s, built the policy that resulted in what we have today, that Shelley talked about how much of the waterfront we have in public ownership and public access. That, I think, will be the touchstone that guides us as we go forward in this matter, and this is one of the most important things that matters to Oakville. I hope we see you next time. Thanks for watching.